Hello and welcome to my Christian Apologetics channel. This is my first video. I've been involved in very informal and unofficial debates, both online and in person, with people of different faiths and different background. And in this first video, I would like to examine the claims of one of the most popular Muslim apologists from India. His name is Dr. Zakir Naik. And I've been following Dr. Naik for quite some time now. I would say a little over 5 years. I've heard lots of his lectures, a couple of his debates, and I've heard most of his arguments that he presents against Christianity and against the divinity of Christ and several other Christian topics. And I must say that, quite frankly, I'm not very impressed with his arguments. I've seen that most of his arguments are very weak and rhetorical. They're very unscholarly and they're not very meaningful arguments. I've seen that his typical style when he quotes the Bible scriptures, he quotes only part of the verses, sometimes not even a full verse. And even if he quotes a full verse sometimes, he ignores the surrounding verses, the verses that came before and after that particular verse. So he doesn't allow for any meaningful context, and that has been his typical style that I've seen. So let's look at his first video clip. It's a very popular video clip, and in this video clip, he quotes several verses from the Bible, from the Gospel of John, Luke, Matthew, and elsewhere. And he tries to prove that Jesus never claimed divinity and he never claimed to be God. So let's look at this first video clip and then we'll discuss it further.
There is not a single unequivocal statement in the complete Bible where Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, says, I am God, or where he says, worship me. In fact, if you read the Bible, it is mentioned in the Gospel of John, chapter number 14, verse number 28, he said, my Father is greater than I. Gospel of John, chapter number 10, verse number 29, my Father is greater than all. Gospel of Matthew, chapter number 12, verse number 28, I cast out devils with the Spirit of God. Gospel of Luke, chapter number 11, verse number 20, I with the finger of God cast out devil. Gospel of John, chapter number 5, verse number 30, I can of my own self do nothing.
So now we saw how Dr. Zakir Naik has quoted several verses out of the Bible. And at the end of his speech, he gives an impression to his audience that, somehow he has refuted that Jesus is not God. Now, if someone who hasn't read the Bible ever and who has no idea about Christian theology, if that person hears this clip of Dr. Naik, he would think that, oh, wow, it's very clear from these verses that Jesus never claimed to be God. However, when we take a closer look at all these verses, and when we read all these verses in context, the meaning completely changes. Now, as you have noticed, I've been using this fancy sounding word called context. So what's the meaning of context? Ever since humans have set their feet on this planet, this is how we have been communicating. We use multiple sentences, a group of sentences to communicate a certain theme. Whether the language is Spanish or French, German, English, whatever language we humans have been using to communicate, we always have done it in context. So whenever we hear someone and we quote someone, we must always quote them in context of the surrounding sentences and verses that he has said. We can very easily misquote somebody if we take things out of context. Now, let me read the definition of context for you. The definition of context is as follows: the parts of something written or spoken that immediately precede and follow a word or passage and clarify its meaning. So that's the meaning of, actually the definition of context. Now, let me give you a practical example of context. So we have a slight better understanding of what context means. Let's say I speak 10 sentences to you and communicate a certain theme. Now, if I have an enemy who wants to misquote me and distort my speech, what he can do is he will look at all the 10 sentences that I spoke, and he'll say, okay, you know what? Sentence number 8 is a sentence that I can rip apart and use it against me. So what he will do is he will rip apart sentence number 8 standalone as a standalone sentence, and he will read and interpret that sentence number 8 at face value. Now the meaning of sentence number 8 is totally different. But when you put that sentence number 8 back within the group of other 9 sentences, the meaning of sentence number 8 changes completely, as opposed to if you were to rip it out and read it as a standalone. So that's a practical meaning of the word context. Now, what is out of context? Let's define out of context. So here's the definition of out of context. Without the surrounding words or circumstances, and so not fully understandable. So, when you ignore all the other surrounding verses of, a group of sentences, and when you ignore all the surrounding verses, that's when you're taking someone out of context. Now, let's look at some video clips of people being misquoted and taken out of context. In fact, I have an idea. How about we take Dr. Naik out of context? I have a video clip for you, and I'm going to play only half a sentence of Dr. Naik, and then we'll see how what happens when we take Dr. Naik out of context. So shall we look at this following video clip?
As far as the statement about extremist Muslims, I tell the world, I'm an extremist Muslim, and I'm proud to be an extremist Muslim.
So we saw how, Dr. Zakir Naik is speaking one sentence, and what if we adopt the methodology of Dr. Naik and just rip that one sentence out of context? What if we don't let him finish his whole sentence? And what if we just take this sentence at face value and take it out of context? What can we conclude? Well, we can conclude that Dr. Naik is claiming that he is a very violent man and he likes, bloodshed and violence. That's what we can conclude if we don't let him finish his sentence. Well, that's the methodology he has used to pick verses out of context from the Bible, right? We saw his clip earlier. So should we adopt his own methodology and distort his position? I would say no, because that would be very dishonest. And, the truth suffers, actually, if we do that to anyone. So we're going to give him the respect and courtesy to Dr. Naik, and we're going to play his entire clip and look at his clip in context, what he was trying to say. So let him finish his sentence, and let's look at the video clip again, this time in context.
As far as the statement about extremist Muslims, I tell the world, I'm an extremist Muslim, and I'm proud to be an extremist Muslim, because I'm extremely kind, I'm extremely loving, I'm extremely just, I'm extremely honest.
Okay, so that explains, right? Now, if we take him in context and if we let him finish his sentence, what was said after that sentence, now it sheds more light on what exactly he meant to say. Now, the meaning of extremist changes completely from a violent person to an extremely kind and extremely nice person. So friends, this is a simple meaning of taking someone in context, or hearing someone's speech, or reading somebody's speech in context. So that's a simple meaning. Now let's look at another video clip of this time, of a media outlet, and how media takes politicians out of context. And media and politicians, they do this all the time. They love to take things out of context and rip their opponent's speech out of context and fooling the masses. So let's look at the second video clip to get some more understanding on the in context as opposed to out of context. So let's look at the video clip.
Now, the president did have a rare moment of honesty during his speech, and I hope voters around the country are watching this.
Taxes are scheduled to go up substantially next year for everybody.
All right, that's right. I know the Anointed One will make sure that that happens.
Under the tax plan passed by the last administration, taxes are scheduled to go up substantially next year for everybody.
So when this politician was taken out of context, it gave an impression that he's trying to say that taxes are scheduled to go up for everybody next year. However, when he was taken in context and when the previous sentence was included, it clearly shows that he was trying to say that under the tax plan passed by the last administration, the taxes were scheduled to go up for everybody. So, friends, that's the meaning of taking someone in context. Now, context is a term that Dr. Naik also understands very well. In fact, I'm going to show you a few of his video clips where he himself admits that whenever we read or hear someone's speech, we must read or hear it in context. So by his own admission, several times Dr. Naik has admitted that we should read and hear things in context. And he also doesn't like when he's misquoted out of context. So shall we look at the following video clips where Dr. Naik himself acknowledges and he also believes that everything must be in context. So let's look at the video clip.
God. Sister, you quoted me correct, but you didn't give my complete quotation.
He's quoting out of context. If you read the context, it starts from Surah Fatah, chapter number 48, verse number 25, which says, so again he's quoting out of context. Out of context. The context is from Surah Tawbah, chapter number 9, verse number 1. And then on page number 572, from verse number 5, he jumps to verse number 7, 8, 9. Verse number 6 is skipped. You know why? Verse number 6 gives the answer.
I was shocked that when I saw many of the panel discussion, my statements were taken out of context. There were half statements, only one sentence is taken, some of the clips were doctored, and they're asking the panelists, do you agree or don't agree? Without knowing the context, or if the panelist has not seen the complete context, few minutes before, few minutes after, how can he give the reply? And imagine, most of the panelists.
So we see clearly how Dr. Zakir Naik is shocked when his speech was taken out of context, and he admitted that some of his video clips were doctored and only half sentences were ripped out sometimes, and sometimes only one sentence, and what was said before and after was completely ignored, and how he was taken out of context. So he also believes and admits that things should be read in context. Now, let's apply the same methodology that he applied when he read the several Bible verses in the original clip that I had played at the beginning. So what if we victimize Dr. Naik and take him out of context? Let's make a cool theory today that, let's hypothesize that Dr. Naik is a Christian. He's a firm believer of the Bible, and he believes in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. And he's a follower of Jesus Christ. Shall we, cut, chop, and mutilate the speech of Dr. Naik to try and prove this? Let's see how we can accomplish this. Actually, it's very easy to take someone out of context and make any theory against him. So let's look at this video clip and hypothesize that Dr. Zakir Naik is a devout Christian. Shall we look at the clip?
You rightly said that anyone who denies Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, will go to hell. You said. I agree with that statement. I agree.
So you have to believe in Jesus Christ.
Jesus said he will die and he will rise. He said that. I agree.
So friends, now you see how this works, right? If we cut, chop, and mutilate people's speech, then we can prove practically anything in this world, whether we are reading the Bible or the Quran or a newspaper or listening to somebody's speech on TV. If we start to cut and chop people's sentences and half sentences and just one sentence without ignoring what was said before and after, we can prove practically anything in this world. And so my advice to Dr. Naik is, Dr. Naik, do you love the truth? Truth is the most powerful weapon in this universe. Nothing is more powerful than the truth. So do you love truth? Do you love and respect your audience? If you do, please quote the Bible verses in context, as you have admitted yourself, and you get very shocked and you don't like to be taken out of context. So please extend the same courtesy to the speech of Jesus Christ, and please let Jesus Christ finish his entire sentence, and also consider what he said in all the verses that you quoted, what he said before those verses. So please extend that courtesy and respect to Jesus Christ as well. And my advice to the followers of Dr. Naik, Dr. Naik has millions of followers, and my advice to you is, whenever Dr. Naik or any other apologist says anything to you, please go home and read the Quran, read the Hadiths, and read the Bible for yourself. And read it in context and see for yourself whether that apologist is distorting or misrepresenting someone's position, or is he being truthful. So please do your own research. That's my humble advice to you, because at the end of the day, truth is the most powerful weapon, and we are all here to pursue the truth. And it wouldn't be intellectually, we won't be showing any intellectual integrity and honesty if we start ripping things out of context. So please, Dr. Naik, read the Bible verses in context. So that's it for now. And God willing, in the following videos, I'll show you exactly in context all the verses that Dr. Naik quoted. I believe he quoted John chapter 14, verse 28, where Jesus said, my Father is greater than I. And then in other verses, he said, I, with the finger of God, cast out demons, and I can do nothing on my own accord, and my Father is greater than I. So all these verses were only partial verses, not even full sentences. So God willing, in the next series of video clips, I'll refute Dr. Zakir Naik and show him exactly that, contrary to what he's trying to demonstrate, that Jesus is not God. In fact, in all these verses, Jesus actually proved that he was God when we read the entire passage in context. So that's it for now. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe to my channel for more videos. So thank you so much.